Hello there, and welcome to our presentation. We are going to explore a little bit of John Stuart Mill's On Liberty. And this was published in 1859. Now, Mill was part of the liberal movement, of which aided in the formation of the United States and subsequently of the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights as well. Now we are going to pick up in chapter 3, which is about individuality as one of the elements of well-being. And he writes that acts of whatever kind, which without justifiable cause do harm to others, may be, and in more important cases, absolutely required to be controlled by the unfavorable sentiments, and when needful, by the active interference of mankind. He's talking about those instances when others do things, when others, for instance, impose themselves upon another person. It is interfering with that person's liberty. And he tells us that the liberty of the individual must be limited. He must not make himself a nuisance to other people. But if he refrains from molesting others in what concerns them and merely acts according to his own inclination and judgment in things which concern himself, the same reasons which show that opinion should be free prove also that he should be allowed without molestation to carry his opinions into practice at his own cost. So let's look at this again here. The liberty of the individual must be limited. Now we're talking about liberty or freedoms, and essentially he describes these liberties as the ability for a person to live their life as they choose, as long as it does not impose or create chaos upon the life of another. And in our current events and such, we've got primarily what we're looking at are the illegal aliens. And the question of whether these illegal aliens have rights or have liberties, freedoms of their own. And according to liberal philosophy, they do. However, in this country, the illegal aliens are looked upon as criminals, and they would be considered criminals because they skirted around the protocols for entering the country legally for whatever reason. If you break a law, then you must pay the consequences, in which case they must pay the consequences. But let's not get into all of that. That may be a little too controversial. So let's use a different type of example that people may be able to apply or understand. For instance, the idea of transgenders. Now, this is not something that just cropped up. This is not something that is new. The whole concept of transgenderism is, it's available in nature. If anybody cares to do any of the research, they will find that what they call gender dysphoria is a natural phenomena. But the idea here is that, and this is what is happening, we are witnessing conservatives, whether they are Republican conservatives or Christian nationalist conservatives, we are seeing conservatives imposing their will upon these people, taking away their right of liberty, their freedom to live as they choose. Of course, on the other hand, these very same people are also imposing themselves upon others, demanding recognition, whereas the only recognition that is required is that they are here, that they are individuals, that they have their rights. However, their rights do not include getting in somebody else's face and demanding from them. That's what is being referenced here. The liberty of the individual must be limited. He must not make himself a nuisance to other people. Either of these parties must not make themselves a nuisance to other people. There is no need to create laws to restrain those who are transgender. There's no need for that. It's a matter of morals. And no matter how you look at it, you cannot legislate morals. You cannot legislate beliefs. If either of these people refrain from molesting others in what concerns them and merely acts according to their own inclination, meaning that if the one party sees two men holding hands, hugging each other at the park or something, they do not have a right to interfere with that. Just as those two men who are hugging each other do not have a right to impose upon a man and a woman hugging each other. They are equals. That is what is being demonstrated here. Within the principles of liberty is the ability to live one's life as they choose. But there must be limits within this to prevent them from becoming a nuisance to others. It's not necessarily imposing, but becoming a nuisance. When insurrection causes harm to others, it should be interfered with, meaning that when others interfere with another's, they should be interfered with. When insurrection causes harm to others, it should be interfered with. Just as when people get in your face about their lifestyle and doings should also be interfered with. That's just rude. It is not social etiquette. It's not good social etiquette to do so. There should be some common respect between people. The key to this principle is the manner of expression. If such expression interferes with another's state of being in a harmful manner, it should be prevented. If such expression does not interfere with another's well-being, but allows them to choose without threat or coercion, then they should be allowed to continue. If you see two men kissing in the park, you have a choice. You may turn around and walk away. You may ignore it, just as you would ignore somebody abusing another person. Let's face it, we do it. You could also pretend that they are disabled because people ignore those who are disabled. I'm disabled. I've experienced that. So let's continue with what Mill has to say about this, because he tells us that as it is useful that while mankind is imperfect, there should be different opinions. So it is that there should be different experiments of living, that free scope should be given to varieties of character, short of injury to others. There should be a variety of different lifestyles, so long as it does not create problems for others. And the problems that are being voiced are matters of belief, are matters of a personal nature. To think that, oh, no, these people who same sex have sex with each other, these people should be condemned, these people should be imprisoned, these people should be harmed. No, this is a matter of religious belief and has nothing to do with the individual themselves. It's all in the person who holds that belief, and they choose to impose their belief upon another. That is not freedom. As beings on a path toward perfection, there cannot be universal or absolute truths. There can only be half truths. There cannot be one simple truth that applies to everybody, because nobody perceives things in the same fashion. They may perceive things similarly, but nobody perceives things in the same fashion. Why? Because we are individuals. We were created that way. Because we are individuals, there are different truths. More precisely, there are different versions of the same truth. Just as there are varieties of characters, including those who may be distasteful to you or to myself, they are required in maintaining harmony. In order for harmony to continue, there must be a mixture of everything, and one cannot overpower the other. It is harmony that nature displays, and nature provides the pattern for us to follow, not to cause injury to others based on poorly perceived actions or imagined infringes or ignorance. This whole concept of transgenderism and the need to stamp it out is based on ignorance, because it exists in nature. If it exists in nature, it is part of what you would call God's plan. And the greatest difficulty, he tells us, to be encountered does not lie in the appreciation of means towards an acknowledged end, but in the indifference of persons in general to the end itself. If it were felt that the free development of individuality is one of the leading essentials of well-being, but is itself a necessary part and condition of all those things, there would be no danger that liberty should be undervalued. And the adjustment of the boundaries between it and social control would present no extraordinary difficulty. But the evil is that individual spontaneity is hardly recognized by the common modes of thinking as having any intrinsic value or deserving any regard on its own. The greatest difficulty we encounter in regards to the lifestyle and actions of other peoples is the indifference of others in their development. Indifference. What is indifference? Indifference is a lack of interest, a lack of concern, a lack of sympathy. The greatest difficulty to be encountered does not lie in the appreciation, because appreciation is acknowledgement. But the greatest difficulty is in the indifference, the lack of concern for other people. When one person imposes themselves upon another, there is a lack of concern for the effects that their imposition will cause another. They don't care. That is our greatest problem, is people don't care how they affect another, so long as they affect another and they achieve some kind of result. It's one thing to protest. It's another thing to destroy property during that protest. Because when you destroy property while you are protesting something, you are showing an indifference. You are showing a lack of concern for everybody except yourself. And that is the underlying problem within society itself. A lack of concern for how you affect another. If the development of individuality is considered a leading essential of well-being, and that it is a necessary part of development, what is it that we claim to pride ourselves of being in the United States? Individuals. Individuality, being different from one from another. However, if you are too different, then that is considered a crime. Then you have all of these conservatives over here. Not that they are opposing you. No, they have gone beyond opposing you. They want to destroy you. They want to belittle you. They want to condemn you. They want to marginalize you. They want to ignore the natural laws. They want to ignore the teachings that they hold up. Christ taught to love one another, and they want to ignore that. They want to claim that, but at the same time, they want to close one eye so that only half of them can see what it is that they are doing. They become hypocrites of their belief, which is even worse. The evil is that such individuality and spontaneity of action is not recognized as part of a person's development. We like to throw around this term evil. Oh, what he is doing is evil. We like to throw that around, but we have no concept of what evil is. And evil is when you take away from another what you enjoy. That is evil. You enjoy the ability to practice your version of Christianity. You enjoy the privilege to live life the way you choose to live it. However, when you prevent another from practicing how they choose to worship God, when you take that ability away, that freedom away, that liberty away, you have committed an evil. You have committed a sin. We talked about this. I talked about this in another presentation on Gnosticism. The greatest sin of the world is when you purposefully commit a wrong upon another. That is evil. The fallacy of traditionalism is that the traditionalist is not concerned with tradition. The only concern the traditionalist has is maintaining a sense of familiarity and convenience because they do not follow what is traditional. And yet, at the same time, when they choose to impose themselves upon the life of another because it offends them, they have the choice of being indifferent, as they are most of the time. They have the choice of understanding, but they choose ignorance. And because they choose ignorance, they must blot out what they see. And in order to blot it out, they must destroy it. And he continues, nobody denies that people should be so taught and trained in youth as to know and benefit by the ascertained results of human experience. But it is the privilege and proper condition of a human being arrived at the maturity of his faculties to use and interpret experience in his own way. There is no denial that we need to be taught, particularly as we grow. We need to be taught, particularly if we are immature. And in the United States, we look at maturity from a number basis. It's not what you understand about life, it's how old you are. And at 18, your brain is still developing. At 18, you are thrown out to the wolves to stand on your own. And if you do not stand on your own, then so be it. You are dismissed. You become indifferent to them. This is just wrong. I don't know any way else to say it. It's just wrong. However, if we assist these people in arriving at maturity, and maturity is experience, interpreting what they experience in life, learning from it. The human faculties of perception, judgment, discriminative feeling, mental activity, and even moral preference are exercised only in making a choice. And he who does anything because it is the custom or the tradition, or that's the way it's always been done, makes no choice. They gain no practical experience in discerning or in desiring what is best. Before you know what is best, you have to have something to compare it to. And this is experience. And you gain experience by screwing up, That's how you learn. That's what allows us to become mature individuals, is the mistakes that we make. However, we need some kind of guidelines to prevent us from making mistakes that can ruin not only our lives, but those of another. Hence, we need rules. But what we do not need is condemnation from other people. What we need is guidance from other people. What we need is understanding from other people. And the only way any of this can happen is for everybody to ask questions when they do not understand something. He tells us that he who lets the world or his own portion of it choose his plan of life for him has no need of any other faculty than the ape-like one of imitation. Tradition does not allow for a person to grow. Tradition only maintains a sense of familiarity and convenience. Tradition prevents you from being responsible. That's what religion does, essentially. It's what traditional religion does, is it allows you to be irresponsible. Oh, God will forgive me. Well, if you take that tact, then what have you learned? You've learned absolutely nothing. It's not God who will forgive you. It's you who will forgive you. And the only way you can forgive you is to understand why you did what you did and to make atonement for it. If you go with this concept that Jesus died for everybody's sins, okay, Jesus died for your screw up at that time. But if you continue to screw up, you are responsible for that and you have to atone for that. I hope you enjoyed this. Now, there's more in this chapter, but then this presentation would just get too drug out, and nobody wants to listen to something that's drawn out like that. So we'll probably visit this again and pick it up a little more. But, liberty is important. It's important to me, and I would like other people to understand what it is. It's the ability to live your life as you choose, but it is not an excuse to impose the life you choose to live upon another. Liberty is about being responsible to yourself and responsible to others. If you enjoyed this, take a moment, like the video, consider subscribing. I explore a variety of ideologies here. And I want to wish you a wonderful day. Thank you.